Support for today's episode comes from Amazon. Amazon is working toward a carbon-free energy future, doing more with less, investing where it matters most, and supporting communities where we operate. East Africa advances regional natural gas pipeline strategy. East Africa's energy infrastructure is becoming increasingly regional rather than national. Tanzania has announced plans to develop a cross-border natural gas pipeline supplying both Uganda and Kenya, a move that could reshape industrial fuel availability across three of the region's fastest-growing economies. Tanzania plans to build a single cross-border natural gas pipeline supplying Uganda and Kenya, according to the Director General of Tanzania's Petroleum Upstream Regulatory Authority, PURA, Charles Sangweni, who made the announcement at the Second African Youth in Oil and Gas International Conference in Zanzibar. The government has not yet released technical details such as the pipeline's capacity, route, financing, or expected construction timeline. The announcement positions Tanzania as a long-term regional gas supplier rather than solely an exporter of liquefied natural gas to overseas markets, extending a strategy that has been unfolding across East Africa for several years. Tanzania and Uganda are already partners on the East African Crude Oil Pipeline, a separate project nearing completion that carries crude rather than gas. Kenya and Tanzania have also previously agreed to study a natural gas connection between Dar es Salaam and Mombasa, suggesting the newly announced pipeline would be one piece of a broader regional network rather than a standalone project. Why the announcement matters for industrial operators. Pipeline natural gas can provide a more stable fuel source than diesel or heavy fuel oil for power generation and industrial process heat. Fertilizer production, cement manufacturing, and mining operations across Uganda and Kenya have both seen rising industrial demand alongside expanding electricity needs, and reliable gas supply is an increasingly important input to long-term energy planning in both countries. Transmission and generation capacity across the continent are already a documented constraint on industrial investment decisions, and a cross-border gas pipeline would add a second infrastructure variable, alongside grid access, that companies evaluating East African manufacturing or mining sites will need to track. A regional rather than national build-out. Natural gas also plays a strategic role in many African governments' energy transition plans, positioned as a lower emissions alternative to diesel and coal, while renewable generation continues to expand. Gas-fired generation can supply flexible electricity that supports grid reliability when renewable output fluctuates. Governments treating cross-border energy infrastructure as shared regional assets, rather than separate national systems, mirrors a pattern already visible elsewhere, including Southeast Asian governments building grid capacity ahead of anticipated industrial demand rather than reacting to it after investment commitments are made. The proposed pipeline remains at an early stage. Feasibility studies, commercial agreements, environmental reviews, and financing arrangements will all be required before construction can begin, and none of that work has started publicly. For companies evaluating manufacturing or mining investments in East Africa, the announcement is a signal to watch, rather than a firm timeline to plan around. Future competitiveness in the region may depend on how quickly this kind of cross-border gas infrastructure actually materializes, not just on the announcement itself. Sustainability Soundbites energy coverage is sponsored by Amazon. Visit the link in our show notes to learn more about Amazon's Spotlight on Energy. For sponsorship opportunities with Environment and Energy Leader, please reach out to a member of our team.